In today's project, I'm going to try and use up a whole bunch of bits and pieces I have laying around the garage. I originally got this idea when I was cleaning up the yard. I had two old planters that I'm no longer using. And I was trying to think of something to do, so I figured why not make some sort of a statue that kind of points the way to the entrance to my yard. So to start off, I just grabbed two skeletons. This first skeleton's from At Home. I believe it's one of their larger skeletons. It's like 6 foot tall. It's got kind of a funky head on it, so I don't really use it very often. So I'm going to tear it apart and use it for this project. I started off by removing the screws and pulling off the hip bones and the legs. And then once those were completely off, I worked on the head, taking the head off. One thing on this project, I'm kind of just designing it as I go. So there's going to be some things that I'll leave in the video. You can use it as options, but I ended up tearing things apart a few times and redoing it, which I will explain that as I go. On this skeleton, the arms didn't have quite the range of movement that I wanted. I want the one arm to point out, like point a direction, and the other to hold a lantern in front of it. And on this particular skeleton, on the ball, the upper ball of the shoulder has these plastic pieces that keep it rotating in one direction. Now I'm just taking my oscillating tool and cutting off those little pieces that hold the arms into the socket. And by doing this, it'll allow me to rotate the arm to a better direction that's more useful for me. And I just throw a couple screws in, once I get it to the position I want, and the screws hold it. So in here you can kind of see how I'm going to be able to position those better. I can open them way up or push them in. And this is the second skeleton, which is a Home Depot skeleton. The arms and the joints have a better range of movement. They twist and move in more directions, but it still has kind of the same issue. So what I had to do was cut out a little bit of plastic on the shoulder itself. So I just took my Sharpie marker, kind of judged where I think needs to come off, and then just take my oscillating tool again and chop off that little section. And the other side was the same thing, but I cut it on the front side instead of the back. And if you don't have an oscillating tool, you could definitely do this with a little handsaw, a file, even probably a pair of pliers could just break off chunks of plastic. You can see there how it expands the range of movement by removing that plastic. Now I can get the arm almost straight out. And then I just replaced the screws on the shoulder. This is a fairly long video, so if you guys want to skip ahead to something, or if you miss something and you want to go back, I'm going to put chapters and time codes in the description. So feel free to watch the parts you're interested in. But I do appreciate you guys watching the whole thing. Helps me out, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. So now I'm just bringing in some planters, getting set up for the next portion. They're self-watering planters. I don't know where they were here when we bought the house, so you could probably find them on Amazon or Home Depot. Or you could do this, just put them in a 5-gallon bucket too. There's nothing says you have to use a planter to do this project. But they're, roughly 2 feet tall, made out of plastic. They're self-watering. I cut down these two pipes to about close to 7 feet tall, and these self-watering planters have I don't know what it is. It's just like an insert that holds the dirt up, so you have a chamber of water underneath it. So what I'm doing here is just drilling a hole with a spade bit that the pipe will fit through. And this will allow me another point of contact higher up on the planter just to give it more stability. And I drilled the hole offset from the center because I want it kind of sitting back and then leaning forward by the time it's done, where it looks like it's coming out at you. So once I have the pipe cut and the hole drilled, the first thing I'm going to do is take my Great Stuff expanding foam, put about a 2-inch layer in the bottom, just enough to kind of seal it and hold the rocks in place. Yeah, I just kind of hold the bottom of the pipe in the relative position that I want it, and just spray foam around it. And to make 2 of these, it took about 1 can of spray foam to do the whole thing. So here I'm just dumping about a half a bag of rocks. I don't know what they weigh. It's got to be 15 pounds of rock in each one, 15 to 20. And I just make sure I hold the pipe. I don't want it tilting at this point or the rocks getting underneath it. And then after the rocks are in, I just put another layer of spray foam on top of that to finish it off and hold them in place. So once I had both planters filled up, I put the insert over the top of the pipe and into the planter. And then I just took a little bit of tape to hold it elevated from the foam that's already in there. I want them to sit fairly high just to give it more stability to the pipe. And this tape is just going to help it from falling down farther when I add more foam. And on this, what I'm doing here is there's a little bit of a gap in between the insert and the planter. So I'm just going all the way around the edge, filling that gap, which will seal the planter and also hold that insert at the elevation I have it sitting at. And then with whatever foam I had left in the can, I just sprayed it on top of the insert. And that's going to give me a little bit of structure to push some fake plants into at the end. So after that foam sat for about, 30 minutes or so, 45 minutes, I'm taking my heat gun and heating up this PVC pipe just slowly. Just make sure it's heated up all the way around. And what I'm going to do is put a slight bend in it. This way when I attach the skeleton to it, it'll look like it's leaning forward. And you just take your time. I didn't want to crease the pipe. I wanted it to actually bend. And you might want to wear gloves. It was hot doing that. So just put a slight bend in it. And then if you hold it for a second, it'll cool down and stay in place. And then once that first bend was done, and it had cooled down a little bit, I just went down a little bit lower to give it more of a gradual bend. And I was doing the same thing on both pipes at the same time, what I want to do is make these like a mirrored copy of each other so I can put them on each side of my entrance. And then again, you just hold it, let it cool down. And this is one of the first changes I made. Originally, I was going to just zip tie this skeleton onto the PVC with the spine and neck attached. But after looking at it, I decided to remove the spine and the neck, like basically just use the rib cage from the skeleton, and I'll screw that directly onto the PVC. And once that was all separated, I took a couple screws, pre-drilled some holes in the PVC, and then I'm just using the same screw holes in the skeleton and putting it directly on the PVC. And I think I put probably about 2 or 3 screws in there, just enough to hold it. So after that skeleton was all attached, what I did was started attaching the arms. So I just basically put them in the position that I wanted and then throw a screw or two through the shoulder blade into the bone, the ball of the arm bone. And that pretty much holds it fairly securely. So this was the second change that I made. I think if you weren't going to have these things hold a lantern like I wanted to, you could just leave the arms the way they were. Would make this a lot quicker. But what I ended up doing was pulling the arms off and then taking the body off. And what I'm going to do is build PVC arms. I marked a spot right at the shoulder height. And what I'm going to do is cut this 1-inch PVC. I didn't have enough 1-inch PVC fittings, so I'm going to reduce it down to 3/4 inch. And after digging through my parts, I found that I did not have a 1-inch to 3/4 inch reducer. So what I did was took a 1/2-inch piece of PVC with a cap on it, and then a heat gun, and then you just heat up the pipe a little bit, and I shove the 1/2-inch piece inside, which is slightly bigger than 3/4 inch, so it expands the pipe enough that I can slip the two together. So you just shove that in there, just enough to open it up, make sure it's hot enough that it expands. And then once you have that in there, just pull it back out, and the 3/4 inch piece will fit nicely inside. And it's actually fairly snug. I think I put a screw in it just to hold it. I mean, I wouldn't trust anything like this holding water, but for what I'm doing, it works just fine. So now from here, we're using 3/4 inch pipe. The cross that's on there is going to be like the center of the chest. And then I just shove some 3/4 inch through the armholes. This skeleton actually worked really well. The holes were perfect size. The Home Depot one was a little bit more difficult. I'll put a little snapshot of what I had to do on that one. But then I just mark the arms where I'm going to cut them off and throw some elbows on there. So I ended up having to run a couple errands. So I'm actually coming back to this a day later, putting the arms in and with the elbows on there. And it actually held the chest on there pretty well. What I like to do for my shoulders is put two elbows close together, just touching each other. And this allows for a full range of movement because you can twist up and down and also side to side. And since I'm going to be covering the PVC anyways, I can kind of build that into the shoulder. But as you can see, it allows a lot more movement in every direction. So now I'm just continuing to build the arms. This first arm is the one that's going to go in front of the chest and hold the lantern. In the way I want it to sit, I kind of want it like holding it up in front of its face. So to achieve that, I just put another 90 on it, and that's pretty much it for that arm. The other arm is going to be a little bit straighter and pointing out. So I'm going to put a double 90 at the shoulder again, and then a 45 at the elbow. In the beginning, while I'm just trying to figure out what I want, I don't use any glue or screws to hold this PVC together. I just kind of dry fit it, which allows me to move it around. I mean, I guess if you knew what you wanted it right at the beginning, you could just glue it or screw it together. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the arms on this one. And now I'm just positioning them the way I want. And this one here is the Home Depot skeleton. It had solid shoulder sockets. So what I had to do was take a spade bit again. I think it was probably a 1-inch spade bit. And drill through the shoulders. So it would allow me to put the PVC pipe in there. It was kind of a pain because there was a lot of screws in the way. But, you know, it ended up working. It just took some time to get through all that plastic. So now that the two are done, I kind of put them facing each other because I do want them as close to identical as possible. I just get the arms positioned and then put a little tick mark with a Sharpie marker. This way if I bump them or they get moved in some way, I can put them back where I had them. And then once you're happy with the position, you can just put a screw in it or glue it. I chose to do the screw because then I can take it apart. I just pre-drill a bunch of holes in each fitting on each side of the fitting too, and then throw a single screw in. Usually holds just fine. I've never had an issue with anything falling apart once I do that. I ended up pulling the forearms off, and I'm going to make hands on these. I'm not going to show you the whole process because it takes a little bit of time, and this video is already going to be pretty long. So I do have another video that's dedicated for making the hands, show you my process on making hands. So if you want to check that out, I'll put a link down below and in the end of the video as well. But basically all you do is you take the wire and attach it to the pipe and then form your hands around that. So this is the next day. I got the hands all completed. Kind of mocked it up with the lanterns that I'm going to put on it. These are just some solar lanterns. On this next part is where I start building up the body and the arms. I just take aluminum foil, kind of wrap it around the pipe, and then just crumple it up. I just want it to look more natural. This is going to be kind of like a woody look to it. By taking the foil and pushing it together like that, it makes like a little vertebrae bump. So once I get the foil how I like it, I grab some masking tape. I'm using 3/4 inch masking tape just because I have a whole bunch of it I wanted to use up. On the second one, I actually went out and bought some more 1.5-inch masking tape because it speeds up the process quite a bit to cover more surface area at one time. But you just put a strip on there. I kind of gently press it down, work my way up so it sits, and then come back and push it together. The goal here is to try to get kind of a wrinkly texture. You don't want to put it on as smooth as possible. What I'm trying to replicate here is like a wood bark. So just giving it that little squeeze from the side puts a couple creases in it. I just kind of work my way around, making sure everything's covered. I use my tape to blend in the rib cage into the spine or into the neck, just to try to make it look like it's all one piece. And it's a fairly long process, so I'll speed through this, but it's basically the same thing on the entire body. I do the arms, the trunk, all of that same way. Just put foil on until you're happy with it and then cover it in tape. Now that the upper body was done, I kind of stepped back and took a look at it and decided I wanted to do a little bit more. So what I did, I have this really flexible stainless steel wire. I'm going to create some vines with it. Kind of the same thing as the arms. I'm just going to put a piece of wire out and wrap it in foil and then cover that in tape, which will create the vine that I can bend around the statue. I didn't really film that much of it because I didn't think was that interesting, but if you guys want to see how I make vines, I have a couple different ways that I do it. If you guys are interested in that, just leave me a comment below and I'll make a video on it. And when I make these, I'll make them at different lengths, but I find it easier to make them longer than what you need, and then you can just come in and cut it with a pair of pliers. Once I had that vine completed, I was just kind of playing around with it, seeing what I liked, how I wanted to go through the skeleton. I thought it would look kind of cool, kind of weaving in and out of the ribs and wrapped around everything. So I just found some holes that I could poke it through and work my way up the ribs and out the neck. I just want it to look kind of natural. You know, one thing about using the vines, you can help build like the anatomy or the illusion of an anatomy. Having the vine attached to the neck from wider on the shoulder makes it look like it has a bigger neck, more menacing, I guess. Not just a single twig coming up. So just something to play around with. Yeah, once I decided I liked the way the vines looked, I went in the house to build some more. It was really hot this weekend, so I sit in the air conditioning. I built about 4 more of these vines and then just started placing them along where I wanted them. I wanted them wrapping down the hands, a little more on the body, thicken up that trunk, and you just kind of just do it until you think it looks good. And once I got to the bottom here, I wanted the vines to also kind of turn into roots. So I didn't just put them straight in the planter. I wanted them to kind of be elevated from higher above. So I just took some little toothpicks and poked them through the tape and then stuck them in the foam. And later on, I'll seal them in better. But I just wanted it to spread out, look like the roots were kind of outgrowing the planter. And once I was happy with the overall structure of this statue, I grabbed a can of some paint. This one was gray, but it's just the Oops paint from Home Depot. Just cheap. I think this one was actually exterior, but just cheap latex paint that I'm going to kind of slap on and just cover up everything. Just put a good cover coat to help protect it. One thing I did find out, it was really humid in these couple weeks when I was building this thing, and the masking tape starts peeling up in the humidity. So if you run into that issue, just be aware that there's probably certain times of the year this project would work better than in the middle of summer. But putting a thick coat of paint, and then I'm going to clear coat this thing at the end, it will definitely seal it up and hold down anything. It's not going to fall apart on you if you try this. I think it kind of gave it more of a barky texture to having the little ends flopping, peeling up. So again, I'm just going around this whole thing, just putting it on really thick and heavy as much as I could just to get it on there. There's a lot of little cracks and bumps, so it does take some time. You just work your way all the way around till it's completely covered. This color didn't matter because it is just a base coat. I'm going to come back and completely paint it on top of it. So at this point, it took me a long time to get this painted. I kind of gave up, and what I'm going to do is grab my little critter spray gun. So one thing I did do after I gave up on painting was I wanted it to have more texture. So I grabbed some of this creepy cloth and just kind of wrapped it around in different places, trying to get it to hang in certain spots and kind of mix in with the bones. Once it's all painted, it'll just add another dimension to it, give it some texture, and hopefully kind of blend everything together. It would have been a better idea to do this before I started painting. It was kind of messy, or I could have waited for it to dry, but I didn't want to do that either. And once that was done, I decided to take it outside and spray paint it with the critter spray gun that I have. If you have an air compressor and you need just something cheap and easy, I definitely recommend those critter spray guns. This house paint was super thick and it sprays it with no problem. I had already I already finished the first one, but I didn't video it, so you can watch me do the second one here and a little bit of touch up on the first one. I just add a little bit of water to the jar of paint and just use the same exterior house paint. And I just work my way around the entire thing, trying to get as much paint on there as I can. Putting it on with the brush makes a nice thick coat, but spraying it on, it's quite a bit thinner. It'd probably take 2 coats or just a real heavy coat. So once these had some time to dry outside, I brought them back in. And now what I'm going to do is put on the first layer of paint, second layer of paint, first detailed layer. And this is just going to be some white acrylic paint, and this will help bring out the texture and all those high points. So I just grabbed a 2-inch chip brush, some cardboard and white paint, and then just proceeded with dry brushing the entire thing. And during this step is where you can really see where putting the wrinkles in the masking tape really helps make it look more organic. You get all those little high spots that stick up. One thing I didn't really plan on was the statue wobbling so much. I don't think it's going to break. It's definitely pretty strong, but I think it might be kind of cool when it gets windy that this thing actually moves a little bit. If you guys are enjoying my videos, please consider giving it a like or even subscribing to the channel. It definitely helps me out, lets me know that you guys are enjoying my video. And if you don't like it, give it a thumbs down. That's okay too. Or even better yet, just comment below. I'm also curious if you guys like these long videos. It takes me about a month to put together these full entire project videos by the time I get off of work and have time to actually make them. And depending on the weather and everything else, I can't get them out as quick as I would like. But if you guys are interested in seeing more, but just shorter videos of just one specific item, not necessarily an entire project, just let me know in the comments below. Now that the white's all dry, I just come in with some burnt umber and then just work my way around. Same thing. Now this step will pretty much cover up everything, but having the white and the dark will allow the highlights to still stand out. And then for the next coat, I took some raw sienna, which is more of like a lighter sand color, and just doing a light brush over, trying to hit the high spots again, kind of like I did with the white, and just working my way around the entire thing. And then once that layer was done, the next step was just adding a little bit of green. I do the green a little more splotchy, so I don't want to completely cover everything in green because I want it more dead looking, but just adding some random highlights, trying to hit mostly the high spots with it, and then again, just working my way around. Once I had finished up all the paint, I took them back outside, and this is just some spray can lacquer. I think it was a gloss finish. And I just put a nice, really thick coat on here. I think I used, I don't know if I used 2 cans for both of these. And I put it on really thick so it was almost dripping off. I just wanted to seal up all that tape, make sure there was nothing that was going to get ruined by any rain or snow, and just worked my way around the whole thing. While these were drying, I just grabbed some pumpkins that I had from previous projects, and I'm just going to modify them a little bit to match more what I want for this project. So the first thing I'm going to do is take some Gorilla Glue and a little bit of water and mix that together and brush it on the pumpkin. And by doing this, it creates kind of like a warty pumpkin look. The one that you see right there already has it on it, has a little bit on it. This one's still a fresh pumpkin. So I just put a little bit at a time in a cup, mix it around, and then just proceed to brush it all over the entire pumpkin. And what this does is it foams up from the water being in there. Well, it foams up anyways, but the water helps make it clumpy. I put it on a little thicker in certain spots, like the eyebrows, but I end up brushing the entire thing with it. There's not as much volume on everywhere else. So I just work my way around the whole face. And I knocked over my water, so I just finished off this batch, and then I had to go get some more water before I proceeded to do the rest of it. But usually just a nice thin coat over most of the entire thing works out pretty well. So while I was grabbing more water, while I was grabbing more water, the glue had already started foaming up, so I didn't want to mess with it. So I just set it aside and grabbed my other pumpkin. But like everything, as I stare at it long enough, I change my mind and want to try something else. So on this next pumpkin, I'm going to add some hot glue and try to make the mouth a little drippy, have like little drips coming off it. I had put glue on this other one previously, and plus a little foam clay on there as well. I think I don't know what I was doing with this. I think I was just playing around, seeing how the foam clay worked. And I've never really done this with the hot glue before. I've used resin and UV resin, stuff like that, to make drips and stuff. But, I've done this on candles and things like that, so I figured might as well try it on a pumpkin. So to start out, I just put a couple beads of glue up along the teeth and the gums. And I just tried to make drips going between the teeth. That didn't work out too well. I had to put it on a lot thicker. And one thing I noticed, the way I was holding it, I was tilting it back so all the drips were going back in the mouth. I ended up having to tilt it forward a little bit to get it to work correctly. Once I got the hang of it, I also grabbed a spray bottle, and that would help me get those drips to kind of freeze in place by cooling them off a little quicker. So after playing around with it a little bit, I think I got my technique down where I just added quite a bit of glue. And then as it started to drip, I grabbed my spray bottle and squirted it so it would cool down quicker, kind of midair. And then once I had those drips started, I was able to add to them and make them a little thicker. And I probably overdid it on this pumpkin. I think the mouth wasn't big enough to really have as much as I put on there, but I was trying something new, see what it looked like. I think it still turned out okay. It's just probably not the best. And then I did the same thing on the eyes. Just put a little bit right on the eyebrow edge of the eye and tried to let it drip forward. And then just grabbed the spray bottle and tried to freeze it. So now that I was fairly happy with the way the drips were looking, I just grabbed some more Gorilla Glue and painted a layer on this pumpkin. I focused a lot on the drips in the mouth area just to try to strengthen some of those glue, little streams of glue. This foam will definitely harden up and make it more durable. So after I was happy with the way the glue drips were looking, I just mixed up another batch of Gorilla Glue and just proceeded to brush it onto the pumpkin. And once I finished up the other pumpkin, I went back to this one. It was already dry. So I started adding some glue. I wanted to build up, make it have a little bit of thicker eyebrows. So I added a lot of glue to the eyebrow area. And then just kind of did the same thing around the eyes and the mouth, trying to create drips. And what I was trying to do here is just build up the eyebrows, give it a little bit of texture, something that might show through the foam. And again, just spraying it with water just to get it to harden up quicker. And then I just went around and did the same thing that I did on the other one, adding glue to the eyes and the mouth, trying to create drips. Put it on pretty heavy and then just leaned it forward a little bit so the drips would connect to the bottom of the eye as well. And once I was happy with the glue on this one, again, I'm just going around with more Gorilla Glue. I think this one turned out a little bit better. I don't know if it's just because it had a bigger mouth and eyes to begin with. Maybe it's just less glue. I don't know, but I do like this one better. And once all the glue had dried up and everything was hard, I took that same gray paint, exterior paint, and put a thick coat over the entire pumpkin. When I was making my tiki torches, the LED lights that I put inside actually made the entire pumpkin glow, which I think looked kind of cool on the tiki torch, but I don't really want that effect on these. So I'm going to add quite a bit more paint than I did on the other ones. So just a nice thick layer all the way around. When I was waiting for that to dry, I just grabbed some of these fake grass plants that I had. I got them from Amazon. I'll put a link below if you guys are interested. And basically just took 2 shades of brown spray paint, because these things they're just straight green and I wanted something more dead looking. So I just put a couple coats on and then I just kind of gather them together, fluff them up a little bit, spread them out again, and just give them another coat of paint. I do this a couple times and I think it works out really well for the overall look of the plant. I know you could probably buy brown or different color, but this is what I had. It was cheap. So I'm just modifying it to what I want. And like as I mix them around like this, I just kind of keep looking at them. If I see like a really bright green patch, I'll stop, spread them out, and then just hit those patches again. And you could probably wear gloves while doing this. I did get paint on my hands, but not too big a deal. And that's pretty much it. It's a real quick process. And I also had some fake Spanish moss that I bought. I did the same thing. I didn't get a video of that, but you'll see that later in the video. And then once these pumpkins were dry, I just grabbed some yellow spray paint for the inside and a couple cans of orange, and then took those outside and spray painted. I also didn't get a video. I did not video that, but I mean, it's pretty basic, just painting a pumpkin. So after these pumpkins were done, I brought them back in once they had dried. So I'm just adding some black paint and some water in a cup, trying to thin it out. And what I'm doing is creating a black wash. That'll just help darken up the pumpkin and also pull out all that bumpy texture that I added to it. And you just take a 2-inch chip brush and just spread it over the entire thing. For this, you'll need some paper towels too to wipe it down. You just give it a good coat. Try to get all the little cracks and crevices filled up, because you want that black paint to remain once you wipe it off. And just work, little sections at a time. The harder you rub, the more it's going to come off. So if you want it darker, you could leave it. You can also spray some water on your paper towel, like I'm doing here. This will help take off more. And if you really want to thin it out, you could spray water on the pumpkin itself, but I wanted these things fairly dark, so. Yeah, just work your way around the entire pumpkin until you're happy with it. You can always add more or spray water and take it off. And once I was done with the black, I added a little brown to the stems. And here I was just adding some yellow, or I forgot what color it was, but it was kind of a mustardy yellow. I was trying to get the eyes and the mouth to pop out more from the pumpkin, so it'd look a little better during the daytime. I think it's going to look really cool at night, but I wanted it to look good during the day too. And this is where I kind of decided that I think I went a little overboard on the glue for this pumpkin. It just, the mouth and the eyes just didn't really stand out anymore. Kind of all blended in. So later in the video, I ended up adding some black to the mouth to really darken the mouth and the eyes. And I think that kind of did the trick to make it more visible. So now that everything was all painted up, I wanted to put some final details on the body. I had this Spanish moss that I previously painted to make it a little multicolored. So I just pulled off a couple pieces, and they break off in like really thin strands. So I just took those strands and wrapped them around the body. I wanted to make more kind of dangly bits hanging off. I guess I could have put a lot more and made it more realistic moss looking. But I just wanted the texture and just to give something that might blow in the wind a little bit, give a little movement. And I just kept working my way around, adding more until I was satisfied with the way it was looking. And one thing that worked out really well with this creepy cloth is it gave me kind of an area that I could just push the end of the Spanish moss into, and then that would hold it. I didn't have to use any glue or anything like that. You know, I just kind of wove them in the ribs around, kind of tucked them under each other, so everything kind of holds itself together. Now that the moss was all done, I grabbed those grass plants that I spray painted earlier, and I'm just going to stick them around the base in the foam, just basically shove them in the foam to kind of give it something to both cover up the foam and make it look more like a planter. And I just tried to kind of work them around. I wanted those roots to show as well, so I try not to cover everything, but still have pretty good coverage. And now we're getting down to the final couple steps. What I was doing here was adding some solar fairy lights. These are, I believe they're red in color. And being that they're solar, it'll allow me to just throw this thing out in the yard wherever I want. I don't have to worry about plugging it in. And what I did was just wrapped it on there, put a little hot glue on there to hold it, and then continued to weave the lights back and forth, kind of making like a, I don't know, I guess it would be like a butterfly, make it look like a butterfly. That way when the lights are on, they look more spread out. Because I could have just wrapped them all around the neck, and it would have been fine. It would add light, but it would be like a stick of light. This way it's going to spread the lights out a little more. And this one was a little messy. I've figured out a better way to do it on the second one, of course, where I just folded the lights in half ahead of time and then glued them all up there in one chunk instead of trying to put it up there one loop at a time. So here you can see how the lights are going to turn on. They're spread out to give you more surface area to cover. And with that, it's on to the final step. So for this last step, I had a 3D printed, basically a PVC stand fitting that had a flat side on it. I didn't get any video of it, but I glued it inside the pumpkin. And what it's going to do is sit on top of this PVC pipe. It was slightly bigger than the pipe, which is why I didn't use it. So what I'm doing here is just adding some electrical tape to increase the diameter of the pipe. And then I'm just going to shove the pumpkin down on top of it. And then once I had that on there, it was a pretty tight fit. It's not going to fall off. I could have added some glue to it, but I just left it the way it is as a friction fit. And then as one final touch, I just added that extra black to the eyes and the mouth to try to get those more visible. And I didn't get any beauty shots of this thing all the way done at nighttime. So the only thing I have is some snapshots I took in the yard. I packed it up and put it in storage before I thought about it. So this is what it looks like completed. Thank you guys for watching, especially if you stuck around all the way this long. I know it's a long video. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you.